You eating something? This is my story from maiden to mother. This is my story about how I became a mother. It starts in college. So out of high school, I went to college. I went to junior college and I studied fashion design. And I quickly learned after one semester that I didn't like to sew and I was bad at sewing. So I took a class that sparked my passion for the environment. So I decided to pursue a degree in environmental science. So my plan became that I would transfer to Sonoma State. So 3 years later, I transferred to Sonoma State University in Rohnert Park, California, and I spent 2 years there, graduated with a bachelor's in environmental conservation and restoration. Had no idea what I was going to do with that degree. I had no career plan. I just was passionate about the environment. When I was at Sonoma State, I became vegan. I met my bestie at the time, Julia, I love you. She helped me go vegan, and together we became thrifting queens. We worked together at a thrift store. So fashion was still a big part of my life, and it was probably the most fashion obsessed I've ever been. It was probably those 2 years in Sonoma State, because I was just a young single woman and I was just with my girlfriends and having just the time of our lives. And so I graduated and I really wanted to stay. I graduated in 2011 and I really wanted to stay living in the Bay Area. So I got a job at Lucy Activewear in San Rafael, and I tried to rent a room in a lady's house, and I just couldn't keep up with that small amount of rent working at retail. So I moved back home to my mom's house where I'm at now in Rockland. And so I got a job in Sacramento. I was doing door-to-door sales for an organic farm. So I was going door-to-door in Sacramento, signing people up for organic produce delivery. So I was trying to stay in the career field of the environment by working for an organic farm, but it didn't have anything to do with my degree still. So doing that, I eventually met Austin. So meeting Austin was like a pivotal point in my life where I realized I was going to be going in a different direction after meeting him. I knew he was the man of my dreams the moment I met him. We met at he had a friend's band playing at a bar. I had my friend's band playing at that same bar. So it was very synchronistic that we would meet there. And so we started dating, and he had a house in Sacramento, and so I started spending a lot of time at his house. And we, in 2012, so we met in 2012, and after 4 months of dating, decided to go backpack Europe. So Austin had some money saved up. He wanted to travel. And so I was that lucky gal that he was going to take traveling. So we flew to Europe. We went to Switzerland, spent about a week in Switzerland. We totally played this by ear. Like, we kind of knew what countries we wanted to go to, but we were advised by some friends of ours that had done this trip that don't plan too much because plans change. So don't buy all your train tickets and plane tickets ahead of time. We just bought our plane tickets to and from Switzerland, and then we bought our train ticket in Switzerland because it was cheaper to buy the train ahead of time. So we had a train pass in Switzerland. So we spent a week in Switzerland just training across the whole country. So beautiful. This was in September. So it was cold. It was cold in Switzerland. we trained around Switzerland. We saw some of the most beautiful views ever. The train was like the main highlight of Switzerland. Like we didn't really do anything else in Switzerland. We found a couple vegan restaurants, but throughout all of Europe, we were using happycow.com to find vegan restaurants in Europe. So we found some amazing vegan restaurants in Europe. So from Switzerland, we trained down to Milan. We went from Milan to Florence, spent a few days in Florence. So Milan, we spent one night, I think, in Milan. And so we saw some beautiful architecture in Milan. And then in Florence, we saw some more beautiful architecture. That's really, I don't know what else to do in Italy and eat amazing food. In Florence, we found an all-vegan restaurant called, what was that restaurant called, Lo? See, Lotus was a spirit baby in my aura during this time. That's right. She said, yeah, Ma, I was there. I was with you. What was that called? Oh, see, Austin would know. Anyway, maybe I'll edit it in, put it in the comments or something. So Florence was cool, and we stayed in hostels the whole time too through Europe. We camped a couple times because we were just trying to do this as cheap as possible, right? So we camped a couple times. We camped once in Switzerland, and then we didn't camp again until Amsterdam. So we're in Florence. From Florence, we decided to go to Rome. We spent a few days in Rome. So in Rome was amazing. Like, I think Rome was my favorite part of our Italy trip. So Rome, our hostel was right across across the street from the Vatican. So we were like right next to the Vatican. And then literally across the street, like you walk out the front door of the hostel and you go across the street and there was a gelato place and it had vegan gelato. I know. So we got vegan gelato a few times, and so vegan, we found one vegan restaurant in Rome, and we went there twice, and the food was good, but literally the best food in Italy was just the pizzerias on the street. Like, there's just tons of pizzerias, and so we would just get spaghetti and bread and a salad. And we weren't much drinkers, but you know what the kicker, the thing in Italy was, and most of Europe, was you had to pay for water. So we were really butthurt about it, but we kept having to buy bottles of water. So we were probably honestly really dehydrated because we didn't drink a lot of water. But we had our backpack, so Rome was cool. Went to the Vatican, went to the Colosseum. Rome, like, is cool because you're just walking around Rome and there's like random excavations happening. Like, you're just in the middle of the city and there's like a beautiful fountain, statues, and then some excavation. Like, it's just an ancient city, right? And so they're still just like digging ancient city out of the ground of Rome. And there's tons of like street performers that were entertaining. So the thing was, it was cold in Switzerland, right? And then it was blazing hot in Italy. So this was, our whole trip was hot and cold, hot and cold. So from Rome, we flew to Paris, and we only spent one night and one day in Paris. So we flew into Paris in the morning, got there in the morning, got a really nice hostel, and then we checked out their rent-a-bikes. So the guy at the hostel showed us how to do the rental bikes. So they have them in New York too now and stuff, but they were really cool because we basically biked all over Paris. Like, I literally was so exhausted at the end of that Paris day. Like, we just would bike everywhere. Every 30 minutes you had to park that bike and get a new bike out of the station. So like, we would just find random places. So what Austin wanted to do in Paris was he wanted to see, it's on the tip of my tongue, the Doors guy. What's his name? Jim Morrison. He wanted to see Jim Morrison's grave in Paris. So we went to the graveyard that had Jim Morrison. We found his grave. That was cool. There was a lot of other people there. There was like a lot of other cool people dead in the graveyard. I don't know who their names were, but like some other famous old people, older than Jim Morrison. Anyway, that was a beautiful experience because it was one of those memories that I'll always remember, because we were walking to the graveyard and we stopped in a cafe, like an open, you know how Paris is, they just have just open cafes. So that's like the door's wide open. We go in, we got a baguette and some orange juice. So we were just like sipping our orange juice, eating a fresh hot baguette in Paris, walking through the graveyard. Super cool and trippy. And then later that day we went at night, once the sun went down, we went biked over to the Eiffel Tower and we took the Eiffel Tower up, and that was cool. Eiffel Tower was cool. It was at night, so we didn't have like we didn't get to really see the whole city that way, but it was cool and had that experience. And then after that we biked home, and I think what we ate in Paris was Loving Hut. We found a vegan Loving Hut in Paris, so that was cool. And from Paris, we trained from Paris